Hello, Dawn, giving the wave. We're going to be in First Samuel chapter 25 in 5 minutes. The link is now posted. See you guys soon. See you soon. Hello, friends. I am here, as usual, with my unofficial co-host, Cassandra.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah. Hence intro. I'm not sure anyone will be calm. Yeah. I don't know why Yoav is posting this, the loading circle. Don't know what's happening over there.
He's waiting.
I was talking. Oh, am I blurry? Is that why? Maybe I am. Do you know who Mitch Hedberg is? Do you know who that comedian is?
No, is that Canadian comedian?
No, he's not Canadian, but he has a joke where he says, I think Bigfoot is blurry. And for me, that's extra scary because there's a large out of focus monster roaming the countryside. His jokes are all like that. So if you didn't like that, don't look him up. It's another joke by him is I used to do drugs. I still do, but I used to too. This is
you know what? I might have seen him. That one sounds familiar.
That one sounds familiar.
Yeah, I could have seen them.
Yeah. So perhaps I am blurry, but Cassandra is not. Yeah. Cassandra is fully in focus, which is why she took off her glasses and put them back on again to be fully in focus. Do I have any announcements? I feel like I should have announcements. Well, I'm done my play, so we have to figure out Macbeth in the next. I think maybe next week we'll do Macbeth. So
really?
We'll figure it out.
To study to reread through it all.
Yeah. Just watch what I sent you. Just watch it. Don't worry about reading it. This is one of the things I'm sure I will say again when we actually study it. But one of the big problems with Shakespeare is that people read it and never see it. And you wouldn't think that you listened to an album if you read the lyrics. Right?
No. Okay. Is it just me or I feel like I can't understand the actors when they're talking? I like to watch things with subtitles. I don't know if that's a me thing, but sometimes I feel like I cannot understand them. That's
becoming more and more popular, and my wife is one of these people who can't hear, like just regular shows. She can't hear if the subtitles aren't on.
Sometimes I can't understand them. I don't know if it's a sound thing, like a technical thing, or if maybe actors aren't. Actually, I don't think I have that problem with older movies. Maybe it's more of like an enunciation thing, or,
It might be.
I don't know if they put as much emphasis on like actually speaking like they used to. Like I think there's more like elocution lessons or something it was called.
Yeah. We did with one of the youth shows that we did, someone said the kids all did excellent British accents. No one had a British accent. We just really, really emphasized speaking well, and speaking well just became British accents to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hi, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Wow, we have Blurry David and Blurry Michael. This is exciting.
Oh, no. Yes. Men are blurry. Women are in focus. What does this mean? What symbolically did I mean by that statement? Who knows? Michael, would you like to share anything before we go to the text?
No, I didn't. Yeah, I just got in here as soon as I could. So, guys, didn't start already? That's great.
Yes. Cassandra, read.
Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him in his house at Ramah. Then David rose and went down to the wilderness of Paran, and there was a man.
Okay, can we stop one second? Why? It's so bizarre how this appears. We just covered a story where Saul was unjustly following David, and David revealed that there was no reason, like that David was on side. and then there's no cause of death or anything. It's a verse. It's if you're going by these verse descriptions, this is all verse 1. So it's half a verse is just him dying, and then David leaves. So, because it doesn't emphasize, like when Abraham dies, Isaac and Ishmael are both there at Abraham's burial. So that kind of emphasizes a making peace. Yeah, Dawn is saying it, that now Samuel died is very anticlimactic. It's like no emphasis put on it whatsoever.
Right.
And a lot of these stories are believed to have been written by Samuel. So what the heck just happened?
They don't even say how old he was.
Yeah, no emphasis put on the death of Samuel. It's very strange. Yeah, I really like that you noticed that. That's a good point, Cassandra, because normally when someone dies, they say where they're buried, how old they were, and sometimes even a summary of their life.
Right.
Yeah. Pulls a Moses move. Okay. Let me just say, we're getting into the story. We're dealing with a lady, so obviously Jason has very strong opinions, as we have addressed before. That Jason is all about them ladies. This is the most bizarre attack that I do on Jason. A deeply monogamous person. Okay, let's continue. But yeah, that's just in passing. By the way, Samuel is dead.
Then David rose and went down to the wilderness of Paran, and there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. The man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. He was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. The woman was discerning and beautiful, but the man was harsh and badly behaved. He was a Calebite. David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, "Go up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name, and thus you shall greet him. Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have. I hear that you have shearers. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we did them no harm, and they missed nothing all the time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore, let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever you have at hand to your servants."
And to your son David. Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. So the first thing that everyone knows about this story, or you should know, is that Nabal is a word meaning fool. That's usually, I think later it appears as even a text note. But his name, I don't know how this guy got this nickname. Okay. Or this as his name, but it's one of those like perfect things where he is a very silly boy. Yeah.
Right.
But this guy, so I believe it's stated that he's shearing his sheep. Yeah, so the shearing of the sheep would oftentimes be like almost like a festival time of bringing everything in. It's when you have the most surplus. And in this time, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no! For a minute, your audio got
Yeah,
really
it sounded
murky
like you were
sounding.
underwater.
Oh no. I'm sorry. Yeah, my internet is terrible. This is Canadians are living in the wilderness, as you all know. All of us as a people. Okay, so the sheep shearing period would have been the period with the most excess it's like during the harvest. And I'm not sure what season the sheep would be sheared. I think it's
springtime.
Going into. Yeah, I would. That's when I would assume as well. Plenty of time to grow back, and plenty of time to make your sweaters, because the processing of, like, people don't think of the processing of wool took such a long time.
Yeah, last year's wool makes this year's sweaters.
Yes, yeah. You think of the dyeing and the whatever those paddles are called. You guys know the paddles, right? We've all been to a. It looks like what you brush your cat with. You take two of those and go opposite directions to remove all the little things in it. Oh yeah, that's a good point. So that could be connected with the Passover. Yeah, it might be around the same time. Either way, David wishes this guy peace. David is a very strong dude. And he's giving them a period of peace. It's looking, and this guy has an opportunity. It's a strong man with a lot of weapons. Why is Nabal? David extends a very nice olive branch. So you're going to see it's all the more ridiculous that Nabal rejects it. It's very nice. Let's read a couple of messages because Jason's going crazy over here. When Christians say they see Jesus all over the Old Testament, it's confusing to me. But the times I see Jesus most clearly is 1, Moses, when he says, "If you aren't a God who forgives, blot me out from your book." Number 2 is Abigail, which is this story we're going to cover here. And David, when he says, "This wrong be upon me," after he numbers the people. Thank you, Jason. Those are good little bits. Don is saying maybe the guy had another name, but for the purpose of conveying the lesson of the story, he's given a different name by the writer. No one would name their baby Fool. So the text is going to emphasize that this is really his name. Yeah, Jason is going crazy, but has texted me that he's not going to be showing up on stream today. But he's going to message us so much that he may as well have joined us. But that's not going to make him join us. Okay, Cassandra, continue reading.
When David's young men came, they said all this to Nabal in the name of David, and then they waited. And Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants these days who are breaking away from their masters. Shall I take
wait 1 second. What is the implication? Remember, David repeatedly in the interactions with Saul has tried to continue to say that he is not a rebellious guy. And the first insult that Nabal says is that many servants these days are breaking away from their masters.
Right. He's basically calling them like unemployed and jobless. Like he doesn't have.
Oh, I like that too.
I mean, he's being
That's
like
good.
a kind of a Robin Hood character or something, or I mean, it's kind of this quid pro quo thing, which is kind of like what the mafia do. He's offering a protection racket, but like at this point, based on the honor system, which is kind of why it's like you should keep your protection racket working on the honor system because it's bad when it goes off the honor system, which is why he's a fool. But
yeah, Jason just said that reminds me of Pharaoh, who is the Lord. He says, "Who is David? Never heard of this guy." It's like, he's the guy with the big gun, you idiot. Sorry. Let us continue.
Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to men who come from I do not know where? So David's young men turned away and came back and told him all this. And David said to his men, every man strap on his sword. And every man of them strapped on his sword. David also strapped on his sword. And about 400 men went up after David, while 200 remained with the baggage. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to greet our master, and he railed at them. Yet the men were very good to us, and we suffered no harm. And we did not miss anything when we were in the fields as long as we went with them.
Okay, pause 1 second. So this bit I think is very important, because if you're just reading it, you might be like, is David being a mooch? Like, could we be on the side of Nabal? But when the guy is telling it to Nabal's wife, the men were very good to us, and we suffered no harm, and we did not miss anything when we were in the fields as long as we went with them. So it's the idea that, like, Michael is saying this thing of sounds like mafia protection. This is the thing. If you know old school immigrant populations, especially when they first came to certain countries, the police didn't take care of them. So it's not, people think of like the mob offering protection as fake. Back in the day, the mob offering you protection was literally how the police worked. If you did not, like, if you paid the thing to the organized crime, they actually were the only people that protected you. It's more like, maybe the mob is a bad example, maybe more like the neighborhood watch.
No, the mob is the perfect example, because if you like watch The Godfather and you go through the series or whatever, the whole point is they're wanting to become legitimate, and it is the thing of like, yeah, the police aren't out here for us, so we got to be out here for ourselves. We take care of our own. But like the whole point is, like in the Godfather 3 or whatever, like when they're all grown up and Michael's, whatever, the relatives are like, "Whoa, we're sending you to law school. We want you to become a congressman or a judge or something."
Right.
And it's like, yeah, maybe like, because it's the actual mafia, it's a little corrupt. Maybe there's some like, some little kickbacks going on or whatever. But the point is that, like, they're immigrants. It's supposed to be this land that's favorable towards immigrants. And really, what David's doing is he's like, it's like political campaigning, because he's going here and being like, wow, King Saul, he should really be protecting these, farmlands or whatever, but there's no one in sight, and those Philistines could come out of nowhere. I guess we'll just have to step up and take care of these citizens, out of, just as a good deed. And then, like, so that's the whole thing, because it's supposed to be like that, that the good people will all remember him when he comes into power.
Everyone just assumes that there's a police at this period of time. There isn't. Right. This is how people were defended. This is how you maintained sanity and safety in these kind of periods, right? Like, and again, if you know anyone from an immigrant population, if they first come to the country and they don't have credit, the organized crime element are the people that will give them a loan before anyone else will. And that can be real bad if you don't pay back the loan. But in most of those situations, you just pay back the loan, right? Like, I know people, that's how they got loans when they first came to the country, right? And I'm talking like Canada. And again, if you have questionable legal status in a country, they also have protection. They have a quote unquote police force that will enforce laws so that you can't be insulted, that you can't be whatever. That these horrible things won't happen to you. Anyway, but we know from the text itself, the men were very good to us. We suffered no harm. So that it's not like they're thieves. That's not what is being said. We're actually told explicitly they were not thieves. They were very good dudes.
I mean, if you think about it too, it's kind of like, when you get to like Nehemiah and they're building the wall and it's like a sword in one hand and a trowel in the other, you can't do that with a sheep. So, it's a little bit more of a, it's a little bit more of a precarious situation. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of saying it. Cassandra, do you have anything else that you would like to add to this little discussion we had?
Oh, no, not for this section.
Yeah. Cassandra wants to stay silent about her relationship to organized crime. I'm not saying that implies anything, guys. That doesn't imply anything. But Cassandra has no comment whatsoever.
I think this is all to deflect from you still being Furry David.
What?
You're trying to give everyone else nicknames and backstories.
Backstories?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that the very Italian Michael Sartori is the one who wants to tell us how the mob works and about how. Remember The Godfather, guys? Thanks, Michael.
Yeah. Well.
What was the name of the main character in that? Sorry, what was what was the character that you were just talking about? His name? I believe it was Michael.
Could be Michael. Yeah. I mean, now the one story I do know about from my family is that I think it was like, it was like my grandmother's brothers. Their mom made them Catholic priest vestments or whatever, and they would go door to door collecting money from people. So.
Anyway,
that was just a scam. They should have gotten in trouble with the mafia for that. But
Chezi is referring to us as children, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure we're like the same age as him. I have no idea how old Cassandra is. Michael, I can guess. I'm 39. Michael, you're like 39 too, aren't you?
I just turned 40 last month.
You just turned 40? That's like 39. Cassandra, how old are you?
You always ask me this. Like every few episodes, you ask me my age. I'm 31.
I can't remember because you're Asian and you can't tell with Asians. This is well established. White people age like down a hill. Asians, it's off a cliff. Okay?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think, let's see. I mean, if we're talking about Italians, I've seen a lot of like Italians that they look pretty good, like all the way up until they die.
It's true. I also, as being non-white, people can't tell how old I am, and I have a redheaded wife who people also can't tell the age of.
Yeah.
How old? I can't remember. I think you're 35, right? No, is that correct?
Wait, who?
You.
I said I'm
She just
31.
said she's 31.
31. Okay, sorry. 31. Okay.
Oh my gosh, I hate guessing people's ages. I guess this girl's age at 25, and she sounded so offended because she was actually 23. I remember thinking that's kind of weird. It's like the same age range, but I hate trying to guess people's ages because it's so not fun if you guess too old.
Why is that?
It's also weird. Just
seems like a dumb thing to do. I mean,
I've been asked multiple times. People are like, "How do you think how old I am?" I don't know why.
There's like ranges, but I went to school with someone that I am certain did meth, and they like I am almost 40, and this woman looks at least 57. And we were just in the same grade school, but she has lived a much harder life than me.
Mm-hmm.
This is dumb, and I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry for being racist for a hot minute there too. Cassandra, please continue reading for us.
Shoot. Okay, where were I? 15?
First off, sorry, Young God said meth, not even once. Not even once? I don't.
Now David's
okay, fine.
advocating for at least trying drugs once.
No. Okay. 16.
Furry
Let's
meth
go.
David. Okay.
Yeah.
16. They were a wall to us both by night and by day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore know this and consider what you should do, for harm is determined against our master and against all his house. And he is such a worthless man that one cannot speak to him. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine and 5 sheep already prepared and 5 seahs of parched grain and 100 clusters of raisins and 200 cakes of figs and laid them on donkeys.
Okay, pause 1 second. Okay, so what is the point of having the servant say all of this business?
I mean, I guess for one thing, it's interesting that he goes to Abigail for help because I guess she's more reasonable than him.
Yeah.
They say they can't speak to him because he's worthless.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really setting up that this is everyone's opinion, because they don't want you to think what Yon God is definitely assuming, which is that it's entirely biased on David's side. It's saying even the other people that were with him were like, we got to get rid of this guy. He's going to get us in trouble.
Well, you know what's the thing is that it's go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him and all this stuff. Because, like when in the story of Judah and Tamar, that's what happens with the sheep shearing. And Judah, he's the patriarch of his little, mini family or whatever. But he goes down there with the sheep shearers. Nabal is staying in like the nice neighborhood, and he's saying like, I don't see any crime here. We should defund the police. And so like he has no eyes on the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Mr. Sartori, everybody. That's great.
Oh, I forgot to ask, what does it mean that he's a Calebite? Because they point that out at the beginning.
Well, so Caleb in Hebrew means dog.
Okay.
So there's a good, like, Caleb is a positive figure in the Hebrew Bible. Like the Caleb is one of the only guys who survived the wilderness years to come into the promised land. And so this might be one of his descendants.
But he's a fool, so he's uncharacteristic of his tribe.
But Caleb also, like, what is it? A rabbi that I was listening to said that the name dog, Liba is heart in Hebrew. So Caleb could mean all heart as well, because dogs, and that this is a characteristic of dogs. But when we think of all heart, we think of that as really, really positive. But that also can refer to aggression and being pulled too easily in different, like a dog that chases squirrels or things like that. They are.
I mean,
yeah.
Could it just be that he is a descendant of Caleb, and like, but I mean, he's a fool. So in some sense, like, his being a fool is what's important, and if whatever characteristics are of his tribe, it's not the tribe of fools, so we shouldn't necessarily, like, maybe it's in there so that people don't like attribute more to, like, if it wasn't a tribe and then everybody, if he didn't say he was a Calebite, and everybody would be probably like, oh, that Nabal, he must be a descendant of Zebulun or something. Like, you could attribute his foolishness to some
Right.
But it's just giving us more context to figure out who he is.
Yeah.
Because he is a fool.
Yeah. Yoav, do you what have you come on to share with us?
Well, I'm struggling today to figure out the geography. Where is it all happening? The desert of Paran is deep desert. I don't think that even then you could raise ships there. The region that we call Carmel today is in the north. And I don't think that David is crossing all the way from the southern tip of Israel to the northern tip. I think the reference, Chezi, do you remember where was the land allotted? Somebody is very noisy. Where is the, is it me that is being noisy? Okay. Should check where was the land that allotted to Caleb ben Yefuneh. As far as my memory goes, his lot was in the deep south.
Yeah,
so
I believe Caleb is in the land of Judah, I believe.
Yeah, but I think even south of Judah. So I think this reference to him being a descendant of Caleb is fixing me on the geography. So that place Carmel is not in the north; it's some other place called Carmel that is in the south. So we're talking about the edge of the desert, where the ship will be at the border of the useful land, and David and his men that are escaping from Shaul will go deep into the desert when you cannot graze the ship anymore. So David and his men don't have any means of supporting themselves while in the desert. So they are relying on contributions from further north. The service that they're providing is indeed protection, but remember who's going there. There are Amalekites and Philistines and various other tribes going around in the desert. It is hard work protecting the population from all those intruders from the desert. And even David himself got hit quite hard by the Amalekites a few chapters ahead. So they are providing a great service. Now, about weapons, they are putting their swords on, but leaving the implements in the camp. So half the people are staying in the camp, keeping eye on the equipment, and David and his men are wearing only their swords because it's a police action. They don't Mount Hebron. Yes, it is Mount Hebron. So they're not expecting a real fight. So it is more of a police. Right. So this is why they only carrying the swords, because if they expected a real fight, they would be carrying their spears, but they left the spears in the camp.
Yeah, this reminds me of what Michael was even saying this of like shepherds. These are unarmed. They're going to attack unarmed people. Like they're not warriors. It's going to be, like you said, a police action.
Now, if Chezi is around, can you clarify the name Naval? Is it a fool or a wicked man? What would you say? Okay, these were my notes for the time being.
Yeah, on the section that we are on right now. Sorry.
I mean, he seems foolish more than wicked. He's not wise. He's
It says that it means fool.
Mm-hmm.
But let me just check what that means. Scholars regard it as possible that some features of the Naval. Okay, no, that's not what I wanted. Where is it? Naval. Come on. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Came to mean the root meaning of the name Naval is wilting, like wilt, and came to fully mean failure, and so gained the figurative meaning of being shamelessly improprietous.
Okay.
Did it come to mean fool because of this story?
No, it's okay. I think we should continue on so that you can see how it gets used in the text, because the text is going to outright say, okay, here, I'll pause it right there.
It's got
but
puns or whatever.
Yes, where it says
wordplay.
Yeah, down here, let not my lord regard this worthless fellow, Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. Right? Like it's letting you know, even if you didn't know what the meaning of Nabal is, you could guess. Yoav, you seem to be... Yeah. What do you think?
I am stick to my interpretation, but then there's the word Ben Blial. I think we have discussed the word Ben Blial at length at the beginning. Okay. Let it pass.
Yeah, Hezi is saying that some say could mean noble. It's interesting, like when you have people that are going to speak different names, different languages, you are going to get names that in one language sounds very, very nice, and in another language is not nice at all. So my one friend was somewhere in South America, and the way they pronounced Ruth was Hoochie. That is how they pronounce the name Ruth, which they said is a very nice name for a girl. Now, Cassandra, you know what a hoochie is. Because you're in California. Sorry, let me be specific as to why you would know that. I meant because you're in Cali. A hoochie is not a very nice name for a girl. But you could imagine if there was a girl named Ruth, and instead of being like the biblical character, she was instead what one might mean by that term. Or someone that I know was a swimming instructor, and one of the kids, his name was Shithed. That is what the kid's name was. The name, of course, was Shathed. Shathed was the character's name. But you can imagine how someone might insult a child named Shathed. Shithed. Yeah. Don is saying David digging a deeper hole with Cassandra.
Okay. On the discussion on the names, going on the comments, Arabic is a very well preserved language. It keeps a lot of features of the ancient Semite language. I mean, it has changed relatively less than other languages in the area.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, it is possible that some tribes in that area would use the name Nabil as in modern Arabic. It is possible.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's a famous convert to Christianity from Islam named Nabil Qureshi, who has passed away in the last couple of years. But yeah, that name is still used. Interesting. Okay, let's continue on, shall we? Verse 18.
Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves, 2 skins of wine, and 5 sheep already prepared, and 5 seahs of parched grain, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on donkeys. And she said to her young men, "Go on before me. Behold, I come after you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. And as she rode on the donkey and came down under cover of the mountain, behold, David and his men came down toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, "Surely in vain I have guarded all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him, and he has returned me evil for good. God do so to the enemies of David, and more also, if by morning I leave so much as one male of all who belong to him." When Abigail saw David, she hurried and got down from the donkey and fell before David on her face and bowed down to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "On me alone, my lord, be the guilt. Please let your servant speak in your ears and hear the words of your servant. Let not my lord regard his worthless fellow Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your servant, did not see the young men of my lord whom you sent."
Okay, pause 1 second. Surely his name is Shathid. I can't help but say that now. Jason is quite right. This is, to me, one of the more beautiful aspects of it. Is Abigail knows that it's a whole bunch of people is going to die, so she as the innocent, as the righteous and wise one, lays her life down to the king and said, "May the fault fall on me," instead of on anyone else. Yeah. So there's, to me, this is incredible. And her face to the ground and at his feet. This is very much an image of her putting herself in the position of a servant. All of it, I think, is there in that image. She seems like a great woman, and it makes sense that we maintain her name in the naming of daughters. Anyone have any other thoughts before we continue on?
I mean, it's like not on the whole story of the thing, but it's interesting because like there's kind of like simplistic morality that gets put into like a lot of fairy tales and things like that, like modernized versions of them or whatever, where it's like, if you're a good person, then good things will happen to you. And like the Bible doesn't ever really point that out, but it does seem like if there is kind of a moral like message, it's that like if you are generous and hospitable, like that's always that's probably like one of the best things you can do, like because it's like you look at like Abraham, the way he runs and gets the servants to, and his wife to get the food ready, like when the visitors approach, and like those are like that's the kind of character that God's looking for in his in the people that serve him.
Yeah, and it is very interesting how you can change someone from angry. And in Psalm 2, part of how the psalm ends, it says, "Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way, for his wrath is quickly kindled. Blessed are all who take refuge in him." So the idea is like an act of kindness to an authority. This is in particular towards a prince, ruler. The idea that you can showcase respect and turn away man, it's funny to me that this is like a controversial thing to say. There are ways that if you act towards the police, you're more likely to have a negative interaction with those police, without a doubt. There are ways of interacting with people where you can make it so that even if they are coming towards you aggressively, they can shift. If they're a good person. If they are an absolutely terrible person, then your act of kindness is not going to turn away their anger.
Yeah, they love donuts.
Michael just throwing donuts at the police when they pull him over.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? I've seen that. I've been in places and the cops come in and it's on the house. The donuts are always on the house, and those are the nice places to be for everybody.
Okay. Thank you for that, Michael. Also, because they're up all night, they love bacon. If you throw bacon at them, they also are very happy. Okay.
Like another protection racket. Donuts and bacon.
It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing.
Yes. Okay, let's continue from verse 26, shall we?
Now then, my Lord, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, because the Lord has restrained you from blood guilt, and from saving with your own hand, now then let your enemies and those who seek to do evil to my Lord be as Nabal. And now let this present that your servant has brought to my Lord be given to the young men who follow my Lord. Please forgive the trespass of your servant, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house. Because my Lord is fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil shall not be found in you so long as you live. If men rise up to pursue you and to seek your life, the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living, in the care of the Lord your God. And the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the hollow of a sling.
Okay, and when pause. Take this to the rest of the narrative. Okay? He shall sling out like... Okay, what does... Using a sling metaphor towards David, like that seems very weighty as far as what metaphor you use. But this other section, it's saying Saul is an idiot. May the enemies be like Nabal, like the fool, like the stupid one, right? And unless I'm mistaken, David even says to Saul, "What am I? Some like lame dog?" Right? Dog again being Caleb, right? Am I? Let me make sure that I'm saying this correctly. But do you think I'm going too far? Do you see how this could be an insult to Saul here?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, because, I mean, if he's thinking of him as a enemy, and I mean, yeah, well, it's interesting. I was thinking about, like, in Gideon today, and how the Lord uses the confusion and has like the Midianites fight each other, and it's like, it is like this foolishness, that the foolishness sort of like defeats itself, which is convenient, but it's also like, it protects you, because you don't want to have to be, it's like, if you think about like when Absalom rises up or whatever, and that's like a very like tense time, because it's like you have, people love David when he's the king, and then Absalom is like very competent, and he's kind of like, look, I'm doing the things that my father was like too weak to do, and it's like, it's such a more tense situation, because it's not like a clear smart guy and a bumbling idiot. and probably for the people like in the moment, it's like you don't know, like, it's like it could go either way. You don't know. It's confusing. But like when you have like the bad guys are fools. It's like a cartoon. It's like, like, look how stupid the bad guys are. Like, look how dumb it is to be like wicked and foolish. It just is not. It's not smart. So
Yeah.
yeah.
This by the way is the reference in the chapter before. After whom has the king of Israel come out? After whom do you pursue? After a dead dog? After a flea? May the Lord therefore be judge and give sentence between me and you, and see to it and plead my cause and deliver me from your hand. So it sounds like this lines up very perfectly with that. Oh, Cassandra, I like this point. Say what you're saying.
Oh, my comment?
Yeah. Oh, that's related. Is that,
yeah, because
that's
Don
related?
said the sling reference. There's also no one who doesn't know who David is and what he's done. So Nabal definitely knew who he was when he sent his men out.
Mm.
So Nabal acted like he did not know. I was thinking that before because it seemed like David was a very famous person the time because he's being chased down by Saul.
That's a very good point. And in fact, the Philistines know the song that people used to sing about him. That comes up repeatedly, that they know David has killed, Saul has killed their thousands, David his tens of thousands. That it's like, that's well known. They quote it back to them.
Yeah. So Nabal's just being, I don't know, selfish, I guess. He doesn't want to share anything.
Well, and I think you're quite right. It emphasizes him being even dumber. Like, do you know who you're messing with? Yes, I know who I'm messing with. I don't care.
Maybe he really was dumb because he only listened to the mainstream media, so he didn't, he was only hearing about Saul's thousands and not David's tens of thousands. Or
Are you therefore comparing him to a certain demographic of people?
Well, I don't know. Anybody that anybody that listens to one source of information is a fool.
That's interesting to think about. There was like a group of people who hated David and thought that he was bad for doing what he was doing.
And rebellious. And right?
Jobless.
And that first reference he makes, like, a lot of servants are leaving their master. And David refers to himself again as the son, as his son. That is to put himself in a position of, like, he's not trying to seek authority over Nabal. So he's not trying to be rebellious or sneaky or any of those things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about even like the people that were, this is still Saul's the king. The people that wanted a king, they wanted the king to be like the kings of the other nations. They wanted him to be like an absolute ruler that basically absolved them of personal responsibility. So, like, oh, there's a king, so whatever he says goes. Like, we don't have to think about it anymore. Like, they were not, clearly the populace was not like wrestling with like comparing Saul's behavior or anything to like the scripture or, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Foolish people, well, you don't underestimate how foolish people can be, I guess.
Yes. Okay, we are going to continue on, unless anyone has anything else to say, from verse 30. Go ahead, Cassandra. Go ahead, Yoav.
The thought just occurred to me that Naval was also paying taxes to Shaul. So what he was objecting, I'm paying my taxes to the king. I don't want to pay twice. I think that was his point.
I don't. Yoav, that's an interesting idea. I should let that sink in for a second. My immediate thought is to reject it because the other people in the story, like it seems like everyone in the story thinks Nabal is an idiot.
Well, but no, I think Yoav's point
Well,
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because the
he's
thing
a
is that
very
people know you have to pay taxes regardless of what you get for your taxes. But some people are resentful of paying like above, for other things. So
well. He was a very rich fool, so it could be such a great fool. I think if I will call him a fool is for not noticing that the wind has changed.
Mm-hmm. This is a good question. I don't know, because did he inherit what he got? I don't know. Like, it doesn't say.
Was he privileged?
He was privileged. He was a privileged boomer. This privileged boomer named Shathid.
I guess would he have been expected to give hospitality to David and his men even if David didn't do anything? Because he's also it says he also came on a feast day. I don't know if it says which one, but that's making me think that something. It's like around Christmas. It's like be more.
Yeah. You emphasize. There's an emphasis like Ebenezer Scrooge at the beginning of A Christmas Carol. There's no requirement for him to give, but how bad he is, like how much he's like, if they're going to die, they best do it and decrease the surplus population, right? Like Scrooge isn't actually required to give to that particular charity, but it is showing him to be a particular uncharitable person.
Right. It's also interesting with the taxes idea. This also shows the other side of like if your charity is outsourced to a government, you feel less need to deal with it yourself when you see it face to face because you already give money for someone else to make an organization or something to deal with that problem.
Yeah. But it's again, so this is the thing is that in certain texts, if you just read them absent of the narrator's comments, you could be on Esau's side when Esau loses his birthright. Look, Esau came in, he's starving to death. His brother takes advantage of him. But the text gets involved, and the narrator said, Esau despised his birthright. You could be, I'm just going to mute Michael for a second. You could be on Judas's side. Judas makes a very good point. Look, we could have sold this expensive perfume and given the money to the poor. What does the text do? The text inserts itself and says, let us be clear. Judas did not care about the poor. He dipped his hands into the money jar. That's why right? So you can see the narrator getting involved. So it's a very interesting idea because Yoav is making a very good point, but it seems like the narration is getting involved to say, let's be clear. David was always good, never took anything from this man, and is now asking like you said, on a holiday for a little bit of help.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you can see, like, from Nabal's character or whatever, that, like, yeah, he is super stingy. So it's like, he is the kind of, like, regardless of, like, what David, like, he would be opposed to paying, like, someone who is really trying to strong arm him, but, it's showing us that, like, clearly, like, what David was offering and the spirit of the thing was apparent very, as a very good thing. It was unambiguous to, like, the servants and to everybody else. So, and that's Nabal's foolishness, is that he doesn't see the situation clearly, right? So, yeah.
Don, let me just comment on this, is that oftentimes the first time you go through a text, you don't notice the details. And so if you are less knowledgeable on the text, it is very easy to take Esau's side. It's very easy to take certain people's side that the text does work to insert little bits. So if you're paying attention, for instance, Sodom and Gomorrah is filled, it says to every last man was interested in rape, in sexual assault. I don't think you feel that bad for that group of people, right? It's important to notice what the text includes because it knows what people are going to get if they aren't paying attention. Any other comments?
Yes, the elephant in the room is that David was very harsh. Okay, so Naval didn't want to pay taxes. Is killing every male person in the house, including little children and slaves. Something made David very angry, more than just missing a meal. I'm struggling to find. I'm sure it's hidden there in the text somewhere, but I'm struggling to find it.
I think the most insulting part is the idea that he is a servant fleeing from his master. Because David, like the chapter before, is David being good to Saul. Him being called a rebel, I think, is very insulting to David. The Yoav, just so you know, the next story is another story where David could kill Saul and doesn't. So this story is in the middle of two stories of David having an opportunity to kill Saul and not doing it. Okay, Cassandra, let's continue reading. Maybe more clarity will be given as we go on.
Okay. If men rise up to pursue you and to seek your life, the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living in the care of the Lord your God, and the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the hollow of a sling. And when the Lord has done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you prince over Israel, my Lord shall have no cause of grief or pangs of conscience for having shed blood without cause, or for my Lord working salvation himself. And when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your servant.
Let's keep going.
And David said to Abigail, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Blessed be your discretion, and blessed be you who have kept me this day from blood guilt and from working salvation with my own hand. For as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, who has restrained me from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to meet me, truly by morning there had not been left in Nabal so much as one male. Then David received from her hand what she had brought him, and he said to her, Go up in peace to your house. See, I have obeyed your voice, and I have granted your petition.
Okay, pause. Yoav, that sounds exactly like what you're saying. David is about to do something harsh. He has been disrespected, but it seems like David is thankful for God sending this woman for stopping him from doing something terrible and harsh. That's kind of the point you were making before, yeah? And that reference that I was reading from Psalm 2, which again is about the prince that God has put over the people. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way, for his wrath is quickly kindled. Right? There's an image of like messing with authority and everything else, but there is I mean, Jan God is even saying it, and it's just like we have to include Yanni's opinion here. getting an ego boost calms someone down. Everyone likes compliments. Like there's a lot to be said about David as a real human person who needs to be calmed down when he's furious.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Let's see. It seems like she wants her husband dead too, doesn't she? When she's talking to him this whole thing, it seems like she kind of is waiting for him to die and is not sad about it.
You interpreting this as flirtatious, Cassandra?
Well, because like what, may your enemies be like Nabal, and then she talks about his enemies being destroyed.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I mean, she suggests like a better way to please God, and that like puts her in his favor. And then she, at the end, she says, "Remember your servant."
Yeah.
So I don't know if she's planning something. I don't know where it is, but I think in one of the texts it describes her as very beautiful. In one of the verses, it says that she's a really beautiful woman or something.
That she's smoking hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says in verse 3.
Yeah, and
verse 3, she was intelligent and beautiful woman.
Yeah.
My comment now is that what I'm feeling is that there is some kind of a honor code, like people in the desert are bound by some kind of by a code that sometimes they cannot change. Seems to me that what there was among the men, all the collection of soldiers and ruffians that David collected around him, there was this code that in such a case he had to come and do some bloodshed. I think he was compelled by some kind of code that is now lost to us. And he's thanking Abigail. She was his savior. It was something that he said he was going to do. He actually never wanted to do. And he was seeking out a savior that will it's like the story with Abraham and Isaac. Abraham was compelled to do something he didn't actually want to do, and he was saved by the bell at the last moment. So David just thanking her for being that that angel that came in the last moment to
right
save him from something he was compelled to do and actually didn't want to do. That's how I read this story.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I never considered that where there's honor code business going on. And honor code also, it possesses people where it makes it so that they're not thinking. It's just what they have to do in that situation. And only someone like Abigail makes him reflect upon that.
Okay, Young God asked what is the etymology of Hebrew. I would like to answer him, but maybe you first wanted to go on with the story.
I'm assuming he's implying the servant, right? Like sometimes Hebrew, like a Hebrew could mean servant or slave. Is that correct? Oh, you just muted yourself instead of unmuting yourself.
Okay, so Chezi says Ivri, which is coming from beyond the river, somebody that's crossed the river. But it is very well attested historically. It is very well attested. There were tribes that were called Chaviru, going deep into the Bronze Age, all around Egypt and the Levant. And it had derogatory meanings. It was some kind of a ruffian or a slave, or you didn't want somebody to call you an Hebrew in the Bronze Age.
It's kind of like an outsider term.
Sort of, outsider definitely, but of a low caste.
Yeah.
I think because I remember last time I had looked at this passage and thinking about the thing is that's I think part of the reason why it's so insulting is that David does a good job. He does a good thing. There's no obligation, but all he requests, he says, where does it say? He says, whatever you can give. So there is no minimum. He could have just said, the well's over there. Here's a little crumbs of bread or whatever. He could have fulfilled the obligation or whatever, the unspoken, because the reciprocity is unspoken because David's already done the good deed and he asked for whatever. So there is no it's not like you could give an insulting gift. So he could have been cheap and he could have given them a little bit, but he does not give them anything at all. And he kind of, insults David. So I think, it's really, in a sense, it seems to me like it's just kind of violated the spirit of just this spirit of generosity that permeates the story of the biblical story up through this point, where you don't see that. I don't know of a previous time of somebody refusing to give somebody basic hospitality, or even you always think about you think about when Jesus gives the parable of the sheep and the goats, and he said, whoever is thirsty and asks for a cup of water or asks for something to eat, and it's if you take those things that he says, the person that refuses, he says, I never knew you. You have no part in this kingdom. So just just a flat out refusal to give anything, at least by the New Testament standard, that is wickedness, because somebody has asked you for something and you are refusing to give. They've asked for anything. They have not asked for a particular demand, anything, and you refuse to give at all. That is wickedness.
Well, and you do have within the law as well the idea that that you are to treat sojourners and travelers with a certain amount of respect because you were such a person in the land of Egypt.
Yeah.
Interesting ideas. Okay. Did I move this? Okay. Let's continue on. We're at verse 36. Cassandra, continue, please.
And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he was holding a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until the morning light. In the morning, when the wine had gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died.
Do you think, especially when it's making fun of this guy, and we just finished a bathroom story, do you think when the wine was out of him, is that a reference to him coming out of the bathroom? I like this though, holding a feast in his house. So what you guys were saying before about it being like a holiday, like the feast of a king. So it's saying he is not a generous person, but he's throwing the kind of party that you should only be royalty to be able to afford.
Right. It also doesn't make mention of anyone with him. So I always imagined him as having this huge party, but it's just him. Because it doesn't say that he invited people. I don't know if the feast implies people, but I don't know.
That's a good point. He just sent people out. He's like, no, I'm not sharing my birthday cake. Right?
Yeah, and sobering.
More like sobering up.
Yeah.
Takes 10 days for this guy to die. So it's bad news. It's bad news for this dude. He's a, why did I click Terabin? More like sobering.
Yeah, and his heart died within him. His heart died within him. He became like stone. I wonder, I don't know if that means he's like just, maybe he's in shock for 10 days.
Well, we still have this as a trope in drama, right? Is that you can, if someone is upset enough by something that you say, that can trigger a heart attack, right? And someone grabbing their chest, people knew what it looked like for a heart attack, right? Like she says this thing, he's like, and he basically becomes like stone. To me, that's saying he's like in a coma. He's not dead, but he's in a coma, and it takes him 10 days to die.
That must have been a long 10 days for him.
Yeah.
I guess at least she was nice enough to let him have one night. Because he was oblivious to all of this that was happening. She didn't tell him anything. It's so BA.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. So again, like as you were saying, Nabal is such a bad dude. I think that it's supposed, like, who gets this upset over, I brought a couple donkey loads of food for these guys? Like, I brought a little bit over there. It's so upsetting to him that it kills him.
I wonder if it's like just the fact of, like, clearly, because it's like, this must be like an arranged marriage, right? Because, and she's smart, and he's rich, and so probably like up until this time she's like been playing dumb, and he's a fool, so he probably had no idea how smart she was, and he might just simply be shocked that like she would, do this thing like behind his back just because he's a fool. He didn't think about anybody but himself, and probably including his wife. So I bet that I think that could be some of the shock of it.
Yeah.
Was there a story a few chapters before that David came to a place where the priests were, and he got some bread, and then Shaul came after him and killed all the priests?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what Naval is thinking is, now that Shaul will get word that I gave David some food, a lot of food actually, Shaul is going to come and kill us all. I think this is why he got a heart attack.
Yeah, that's good.
Yoav, thank you so much for putting this in context, because David has just finished being on side with Saul. But what is the first verse of this chapter? Samuel is dead. The first verse is that the moral authority has died, right? Where even when the kings do wrong, Samuel comes and corrects them. And so Samuel has died, the prophet, the moral authority at the top, even above the king, has died. That's the beginning of this story, which we said when we were reading feels like it's just said in passing. But like within that context of like, it is after the moral authority of the nation has died, what does that look like for everyone else? So what difference does it make whether or not David has come on side with Saul, and Saul has acknowledged that? Let's continue, so that we can get through this guy.
When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Blessed be the Lord who has avenged the insult I received at the hand of Nabal and has kept back his servant from wrongdoing. The Lord has returned the evil of Nabal on his own head." Then David sent and spoke to Abigail to take her as his wife. When the servants of David came to Abigail at Carmel, they said to her, "David has sent us to you to take you to him as his wife." And she rose and bowed with her face to the ground and said, "Behold, your handmaid is a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord." And Abigail hurried and rose and mounted a donkey, and her 5 young women attended her. She followed the messengers of David and became his wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and both of them became his wives. And Saul had given Michal his daughter, David's wife, to Palti, the son of Laish, who was of Galim.
That's a weird ending to the story. It's like he takes her, and it kind of seems like it's justifying it because Michal, his daughter, was given away. Right? Like,
yeah, I was thinking about this one because I don't know, because they're saying, there's some commentators say that Saul also had a wife named Ahinoam, that it could be her, but it's not clear, I guess. But the interesting thing is that, and the thing that I heard, and I think this is true, is it's like David, it's kind of this shame. It's a shame or whatever, because he's just married this very admirable woman who's very intelligent, who should be like the kind of a partner, the kind of a queen that is a real partner to a king. But then he also marries this other woman and saying like, oh, David's just a womanizer or whatever. But this is the mother of Amnon, and Amnon has terrible character. But I was studying that story and kind of like just thinking about the fact Amnon's David's firstborn. The people are not really that moral in the land or whatever. And he's like a real womanizer kind of a guy. Like, what kind of what is the character of his mother? And I wonder if this marriage was due to entrapment, like because she got pregnant or whatever, with Amnon,
or making treaties essentially with groups of people when you're in these situations of tribal leadership. A lot of the marriages are not out of character, like not because you think this other person is, as you were saying, like someone that you could actually join your life with, but instead, I marry you, I won't kill you, as like so that we're secure. I also think that within this context, Saul wants David to have less legitimacy to take over as king. As long as David has Michal as one of his wives, he has more legitimacy to take the kingship from Saul. Right? He married the princess, of course. Of course he, right? So while David and Saul are still, even though they made minor peace with each other a chapter ago, Saul is still doing what he does to do the politically expedient things. Thank you for remembering who Ahinoam gives birth to. And it is also interesting because Abigail basically is not important as far as what happens like later on. She doesn't come back. Like Bathsheba comes back, but Abigail does not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is that, I think that David's character fundamentally changes after the thing with Bathsheba. And I think that is part of his weakness. That's to say, the weakness of it is that he may have noticed that Abigail is beautiful, but I don't know if he really appreciated her character or her intelligence.
Yeah. Abigail has a son, and his name is Khalib, also known as Daniel. That's all I got. Yeah, it's interesting that she, like, this story is so interesting, but what becomes of it?
Yep.
This is also very interesting. Sorry, I was wondering about diplomacy when I was thinking about this passage and how Trump called, what's his name? The Korean dictator, Little Rocket Man. How he would, remember how he would like do that and give like all these world leaders like nicknames, but it was like a "don't mess with me" kind of a thing, where it's like Nabal as this guy's name. Every time I talk about this now, I'm going to say this guy's name was Shathid. That is now how I'm going to say that, which I don't know what Shathid means.
Mm.
The Cambridge Dictionary thinks that I mean the other thing. That's not what I mean. I mean the name. No.
You know, I was thinking it's fun. It's too bad Abigail never comes back, but I was thinking she's kind of the opposite of the other stories of like wives, because I was thinking about like Samson and Delilah. Like that's usually like they'll pick a wife and then she'll have aspects about her that kind of drag them down.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. But then Abigail does the opposite for David. She corrects him, and he listens to her.
I wonder if she's scared of. I wonder if he's scared of her. Like, you know, maybe he's a little afraid. Like he doesn't want to expose his weaknesses or any of his foolishness to her.
He identifies her with God, right? God has corrected me. God has stopped me. All these, like he identifies her with God. Yoav?
Okay, so we know that she had a son. So there was a prince later in Jerusalem. There would be a prince that was her son. Now, what was happening in the courtyard in Jerusalem? That every mother was trying to push her son to be the future king. There was intense politics in the court about who is going to succeed David, and all of the contenders except Solomon got killed in the end. So I think the cleverest thing that this woman did is to keep out of the limelight, to hide her son away from the palace intrigue.
Yeah. It's kind of like what is that quote? Something about like well-behaved women rarely make history. It's kind of like that. Like all these stories that we read about is people messing up. And all the fallout that comes from a bad decision.
Another comment, I had this theory that David's action is compelled by his the relationship with his people. It's something that his people expected him to do. And he wouldn't have done it if it was up to himself. And the question is, couldn't he govern his people better? If there was this expectation, could he have politically managed it better? And I think he hasn't come to the test yet, because everything that he was doing was successful. Every battle that he was conducting, he won. There was never a chance for his people to doubt him or to get with the confrontation with him. So I will go further in the story to the first time that David made a real mistake, that his people had reason to be angry with him. And you will find, I think, that like every other Israeli, they will turn against him very easily. It will become very hard to govern. So I can understand why at that early age, he would not know how to comfort them.
Very interesting ideas, guys. Yeah, the character of David right now, how we interpret him. Because it is sometimes too easy, I think, to put him as like perfect without any flaws, without any struggles, without anything else. And this is a very interesting image because Nabal is not a king. Because you can say, okay, Nabal represents all of his people, but he kind of, does he? Does he but David is ready to kill everyone. So it is again, an interesting image as to how far we're supposed to take this and how good we are to determine David as.
But he didn't hear what the servants said. They just said that to Abigail. So he just took Nabal's words as representative of the whole community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think I have anything to add to this. Thank you, guys. That's very... Yep. Yeah, I'm very struck by some of these things that have come out by this. Any other comments that you would like to make? Cassandra, as my co-host, you get to go first.
Oh, I thought it was a good study. It was nice to see Yoav hang around longer than his one question. That was pretty surprising.
It's not one question. It's one comment. It's I was watching, and I want you all to know this. Yoav is a knowledgeable guy who also is an expert on Israeli geography in that he lives geographically in Israel. That's the best I can do. Are those foxes in the picture behind you, Yoav? Or are those wolves? Coyotes? Jackals.
Yeah, and they're hanging around free and wild in Tel Aviv. This was taken next to my house in Tel Aviv.
I shall make you a dwelling of owls and a haunt of jackals. Is that why you have it?
No. They're just there. They don't ask anybody. They have not read the scripture.
That was I love that reference, a haunt of jackals. And I was, for a period of time, there already is a band. I was like, I need a band called Haunt of Jackals. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, cute. They look kind of cute, actually.
Yeah, they're not big. They're not big. They're not dangerous unless you're a cat or a little baby.
But they are scavengers, right? Like they get into...
Hunter scavengers. Mainly in the city, they are mainly scavengers but they would hunt if they could find.
Right.
They would hunt, not as a group, not at a pack. Individually, they will hunt. Birds, maybe. I think they can climb trees. I found them sometimes on trees. I don't know how they do it, but I think they can climb trees.
Wow. Well, that made them way more scarier. They can climb.
There's an image that I've seen. I don't know if you've seen this, but it does not look real to me, no matter how many times I look at it, which is, let me share it. Goats can climb trees, which like doesn't sound like in certain areas in order to get like the leaves. You just look and you just go, does Are those goats at the top of a branch? That does not seem possible.
Goats are extremely clever.
Yeah.
I mean, goats are not sheep. Goats know their way around in the world. Really.
There we go. There's like, does this look at this guy at the top just hanging on.
I really want to see how they get down.
One leg at a time.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Yoav, anything else you want to bestow your wisdom upon us with?
It has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, Michael, Mr. Sartori, the head of the Sartori crime family.
No.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Michael, for spending your lunch with me. Thank you, Yoav, for spending the middle of the night with you. Is that? I don't know what time it is over there. I think you might be like the exact opposite of Cassandra as far as time.
It's like 12 hours, you mean?
Yeah. What time is it?
It's like nine something, right? 9 o'clock. Almost.
Yes. Yeah. It's 9:40.
Oh, okay.
Cassandra, what time is it for you?
11:40.
Okay. But you are morning and he is evening. Awesome. Okay, thank you guys so much for coming out. We're going to talk more next time, another time about David not killing someone. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for commenting. Even you, Yanni. Even you. Goodbye.
See ya.